Welcome, everyone, to San Diego Sports Talk. Coach John Kentera with you, breaking down San Diego sports. And today, on Father's Day, I want to wish everyone a very, very happy Father's Day. Hope everyone having a great day out there. And I certainly think about my dad and my brother as well, and my grandfathers, who spent so much time with me as a youngster, whether it was teaching me to be a hard worker, or working with me in my different athletics, or working with me when I got home and needed some help with my homework, and just a very, very special day. And I'm very fortunate to have two daughters and six grandchildren, and I can only imagine how a lot of you are celebrating today. And whether your father's still with us or not, you still have great memories. So I appreciate all you fathers out there. And again, I hope you're having a happy Father's Day. We got a lot to unravel, folks. And I want to tell you in advance, I want you to make sure that you tune into the entire program today, because today's the 10-year anniversary of our buddy Tony Gwynn passing away. And I want to share a little story with you regarding Tony. I've got many stories of Tony Gwynn, but I want to share one special one that I'll always remember because it was the last time I ever saw my friend. And I'll share that with you at the end of our podcast this afternoon. I got to tell you, the Padres are in a real skid. They went into New York and just got beat 38 different ways. This is not a great ball club. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me since the last podcast and say, Coach, do you think the Padres are a playoff caliber team? Well, yeah, they are a playoff caliber team. They're a very mediocre team. As of right now. Now, things can certainly change. I mean, get Musgrove healthy, get Darvish back out there. Hopefully, at some point in time, you get Xander Bogaerts back. That's going to energize this ball club. But right now, they're very mediocre. With their loss on Sunday at Citi Field, getting swept 3 straight, 7 straight road loss. So we're going to talk more about that in a minute. Very mediocre ball club. But when you take a look at the standings, let's face it, a lot of mediocrity, not only in the National League, but as well as in the American League. There's some ball clubs that really aren't playoff caliber teams, but they are because of the expanded format. So the Padres, they folded 1 game under 500 with the loss on Sunday. And it was an ugly loss. It was a real ugly loss because they worked their tail back to make it a 1-run game, and then they burped it up and got blown out there in the 8th inning. But yeah, they're a mediocre ball club. Let's face it. We want them to be a lot better than they are. We keep hoping. Well, I got news for you. Last year they went 82-80, and the only reason they went 82-80 is because down the stretch they beat 18. They had 18 games against teams who were under 500. They won 16-2. They also had 9 games with teams over 500. Went 4-5. So against the good teams, they lose. Against the bad teams, they beat them up towards the end. That's why they finished 82-80 a year ago. This year, they're a game under 500. You don't have to be a math major to figure this out. Over the last full season and where we're at right now, the Padres, they're 1 game over 500. Why do we keep thinking this is a championship caliber ball club? Because it's not. It's not in any way, shape, or form. And I'm sure as we work our way towards the July 30th trade deadline, we're going to find out, are we buyers or are we sellers? Well, I got news for you. There's about 4 guys, well, maybe 5 or 6 if you're looking with different lens. There's 4 guys that I think other organizations want, but I don't want to trade those guys. I don't want to see the same thing happen again and again and again, where the Padres sign a free agent, and then they decide, well, we're going to trade a guy to get somebody else, or we're going to trade our farm system. We've already done that twice. I don't want to do it a third time. Okay? I mean, this is a decade of this. And if they can't win this year, there have to be some big changes in this organization. I mean, seriously. I mean, how many more times can the Padres try to sell this to the public? For crying out loud, it is what it is. It's a bunch of guys that go out there. They're getting paid a lot of money, and some guys are producing, some guys aren't. And they don't go about their business day in and day out. They play when they want to play. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this team, but they don't play like it some days. They really don't. And the pitching's a problem. You got two of your stalwarts at the top of the rotation that have been hurt for a long time. I mean, Musgrove and Darvish finished last year on the IL, and they've both been on the IL twice this year. They got to get healthy. Bogarts has got to get healthy. Machado's got to find his stroke. Tatis going through a little bit of a difficult spot in New York, man. Sunday, he was awful. He had a rough day Sunday. I mean, how about 0 for 5 and 4 punch-outs for Fernando? And the tying and go-ahead runs were on base in the 8th inning, and he struck out. I mean, that's a rough day at the old ball yard. But the Padres on Sunday, they got absolutely hammered. They couldn't get the job done. That was the bottom line. I mean, Dylan Cease, he's been up and down. I mean, rough day for Cease. He got pounded. He gave up a leadoff homer, leading off the ball game to Francisco Lindor, and 3 batters later, Pete Alonso got him for a 3-run bomb. I mean, that's a rough day at the old ball yard, folks. There's no question about it. You know, I look at Matsui. He's been okay, 4.11 ERA, but he's had a hard time with control. Stephen Kolek, you know, whatever you get out of Kolek this year is a real plus. Rule 5 guy from Seattle. I like him. I think he's going to be pretty good. He's a young guy. He's trying to learn to pitch at the big league level. It's that simple. Then they brought in Jeremiah Estrada, and Estrada was awful. You know, he spent the other day at the MLB Network and talking to Pedro Martinez about the chitter and how you throw this pitch. Well, I got news for you. It didn't work on Sunday. I mean, he got lit up like a Christmas tree. The former Padre catcher, Luis Torrens, had some good times up in Seattle, but now hooked on with the Mets. He took him over the boards, leading off the bottom of the 8th inning. Padres had cut it to a 1-run deficit. And Estrada came in and threw gasoline on the fire, a third of an inning. 5 hits, 4 earned runs. Man, that's brutal. And then they had to bring in Enyel De Los Santos, and he threw 2 pitches and got a ground ball double play to get out of the inning. But, I mean, that was an ugly ball game on Sunday. I mean, if you folks gathered around on Father's Day to watch this ball game, you had to be a little bit frustrated, I would certainly think. I certainly was. I mean, the Padres just couldn't get the job done. You know, looking at some of the final numbers, well, first of all, the score, they got beat 11-6. Alonso had 5 RBIs. Mets now have won 5 in a row. But 11-6, that's not going to get it done. Padres ended up having 10 hits in the game. But they fell behind early. Dylan Cease, rough day. How about Cease's final numbers? 3 2/3, 7 hits, 7 earned runs. 3 walks, 5 strikeouts, and gave up 2 home runs. Record now 6-6 and a 3.95. Remember, his ERA was 4.5 last year with the Chicago White Sox. Maybe he started to pitch like he did as a White Sox last year. If you go back 2 years ago, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. But he made a lot of mistakes on Sunday. I mean, just an amazing amount. Then I was looking at the Padre record. Padres were doing unbelievable. They had as good a record as anybody in baseball on the road until their last 7 games. At one point in time, the Padres were 19-10 on the road. 19-10. That's unheard of. But now they've lost 7 straight. You go back to the game in Kansas City where they lost on that Sunday, when they didn't have their guys Estrada or Suarez ready to go. They had already pitched enough and they couldn't use them. Matsui came in and ended up blowing up and they got beaten a walk-off. Then they go in to take on the Angels, for crying out loud. The Angels stink. And they go up to Anaheim and they get swept. They get swept 3 straight. Now they go into New York and get swept 3 straight. 7 in a row now they've lost on the road. And some of these games are getting ugly. They really are. And now they got to go into Philadelphia Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before they come home for a 4-game series against the team that's leading the National League Central, the Milwaukee Brewers. So the Padres, they better pull their bootstraps up, folks, or they're going to play their way out of this. They've already played other teams into it so far because they haven't been pushing it over 500. Now they're a game under, and everybody else getting a little bit closer. But there's some bad teams. There really some bad teams. If you can't make the playoffs with this extended format, then you better take a good hard look at your organization and what you're doing and what you're not doing and why you're not getting it done. Because really, I mean, I look at both the American and National League, and there are going to be some teams that get into the playoffs that have no business being playoff caliber teams. Well, let's be honest. Okay, so the Padres lost 7 straight, and then they got to go into Philadelphia. Let's talk about Manny Machado. Well, first of all, he got kicked out of the game on Sunday. Awful call by the home plate umpire. But that doesn't matter. I mean, he got called out. It was a terrible call. Manny had something to say. He got ejected. That happens. It was 11th time in his career he got ejected. I'm not going to lose sleep over that ejection. But I am going to lose sleep over the way Manny's going about his business. Now, if he's hurt, he shouldn't be playing. Okay, so as a fan, as a media guy, if I see Manny Machado in the lineup, that's telling me that he's healthy and he can play. Nobody's 100% this time of year. Nobody. I don't care who it is. The bat boy's not 100% this year at this time of the season. It's tough being a major league player. Day in and day, it's tough being a major league broadcaster. It's tough being a bat boy. It's tough being a security guard, a ticket taker, when you got to come to the ballpark all the time. But if Manny's in the lineup, and he played third base in this series, so the hip must be feeling better, but the bat's anemic. In the series, Machado was 1 for 11 with 5 strikeouts. Now, on Sunday, he got an RBI single in the first inning, got the Padres a 1-0 lead before Cease, gave it up there in the bottom of the first. But 1 for 11, 5 strikeouts. Dating back to the last game against Oakland, Manny will go into Philadelphia on Monday night, 1 for his last 15. Had a pretty good series against Oakland. Okay, had a couple of multi-hit games and then went over in the final game, and then 1 for 11 against the Metropolitans. So he got to pick it up. He's hitting 245 on the year, very little power, not doing what you expect Manny Machado to do. Okay, and the one thing about Manny, when Manny's not playing well, you know he's not playing well because you see him malinger around. The other night, I don't care who he is. I don't care what he said in the past about running to first base. That guy from the Mets kicked that ball all over. Manny's blowing a bubble running to first base, jogging down to first base. I know he's been hurt, but you got to give me a little bit better effort. Okay, you got to give me a little bit better effort. I mean, that's just a bad look. That's a bad look if you're supposed to be the leader of the ball club. So he got to pick it up a little bit. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of pitchers. I want to talk about Adam Mazur, who threw in the game on Saturday. Didn't throw very long, for that matter. He's having his struggles right now, no question about it. And they lost to Jose Quintana. Jose Quintana, man, he just rolls it up there. 36 years of age, been around a long time, and you got to be able to put him away. I mean, he pitched going into the game. He had a 5+ ERA. Last couple of starts have been awful. He had a 1-5 record. Come on, you got to do better than that. But Adam Mazur went out there on Saturday, making his third big league start. Lasted 3 2/3. 10 of 20 batters, he threw a first pitch strike. Not going to get it done in the big leagues. Now, I looked at his numbers. And this kid has some talent. He doesn't have overwhelming ability, I don't think. But can he pitch in the big leagues? Absolutely. Absolutely, he can pitch in the big leagues. But in my opinion, he needs more seasoning. He needs to go down to the minor leagues. He had very little time at double and triple A. He needs to go down and throw against some veteran hitters and work on trusting his stuff and pounding the strike zone. This is the same thing that I've said about Randy Vasquez. And Randy Vasquez is really starting to come around and pitch pretty good baseball. Randy's biggest problem is he's really struggled in the first couple of innings. And after that, he kind of settles in. And you gotta trust your stuff. If you're going to get beat, trust in your stuff and going at these guys. Don't nibble, walk guys, and then have to come in and the guy takes you downtown for a 3-run home. You got to trust your stuff. Challenge some hitters. Don't pitch scared out on the mound. And I'm not saying that Adam Mazur is pitching scared, but he's getting his feet wet at the big league level. He had a very nice performance that night in Anaheim against the Angels, struggled in his second start, and was not very good in his third start. And I don't know if Darvish comes back. I don't know if we see Mazur again, at least for the time being. Vasquez will stay in the rotation, I would imagine, because I was looking at Mazur, and the biggest problem I have, and you look at his ERA right now, it's 7.82 and an 0-2 record. But the thing I'm looking at is he's just walking too many guys. He's faced 61 batters in the big leagues, and he's walked 13 of them. That you can't get by with that, folks. You can't get by with that. And then you take a look down in AA and AAA this year, he'd faced 199 batters. And you can say, well, maybe these guys are a little more free swingers. Well, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But he only walked 9 batters in 199 at-bats against him. And he's already walked 13 and 61. That tells me he's trying to either overthrow, trying to pinpoint his stuff, or just not trusting his stuff. So Adam Mazur needs a little more seasoning for me. I don't know how you see it, but in our little comments, give me your take on that. Okay, the other guy that I want to talk about, and man, this guy, I got to be honest with you, I enjoy watching this guy pitch. Having worked a lot with pitchers in my coaching career, I am really enjoying watching Matt Waldron pitch. And the reason for that, he's got a repeatable delivery, very basic delivery, but it's repeatable. And he throws strikes, and he's getting ahead of hitters. He don't throw hard. He throws 90 to 92. Maybe if he humps up 93, I don't know if he's throwing 94 at all. Normally he's about 91, 92. But he gets ahead of hitters, and then he uses that knuckleball and kind of keeps everybody on guard. He's doing a great job. I mean, a really great job. And I was looking at some numbers. And overall, and he pitched the game on Friday night where the Padres got beat 2-1. He gave up that 2-run double to J.D. Martinez. Man, Martinez killed the Padres all weekend long. But he gave up that 2-run double to J.D. Martinez. Padres got beat 2-1. Matt took the loss that night. His record now 4-6, ERA down to 3.66. But in his last 7 starts, he's been amazing. Batters in Matt Waldron's last 7 starts are hitting an anemic 181 against him. And he's got an ERA of 1.91. That's as good as they get. You can't pitch any better than that. Matt Waldron's done a hell of a job. There was a point in time early in the year where you thought, man, Matt Waldron, he's not going to be in that 5th spot. He's not even going to be on the ball club. And now he's been the most consistent guy. I mean, he's been the most consistent guy. I mean, he's got a better ERA than Dylan Cease. Now, Cease is 6-6, but as far as pitching and quality, Matt Waldron's on a hell of a run right now. Okay, I do want to mention one guy in particular, and that's J.D. Martinez. I wrote his numbers down, and he's just like absolutely off the chart right now. Absolutely off the chart against our Padres. I mean, he killed them all week long. He went over the weekend. J.D. Martinez went 6 for 9 with 2 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs. And he walked, I think, 4 times. I mean, he was on base the entire series. Padres never quite figured out how to slow him down. But that series is in the book. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Phillies. Philadelphia Phillies dropped 2 out of 3 this weekend down in Baltimore. All right. We know how good Baltimore is. But they're going to come into the ball game on Monday, and the first 2 games are going to be Monday, Tuesday at 3:40. The Wednesday game will be an early morning game at 10:05. And we will have a podcast immediately following the game on Wednesday to get you ready for the Milwaukee Brewers coming in. So mark that down. That podcast should be up by no later than 6 o'clock Pacific Coast time on Wednesday. Phillies in first place in the National League East with a record of 47-25. They've been incredible all year long. Padres are going to have their work cut out for them. Monday, right-hander Randy Vasquez, who I just mentioned, pitching pretty well. 1-3 record and a 4.93 ERA, going against left-hander Christopher Sanchez, 3-3 and a 3.07 ERA. That's the easy guy for the Padres to go against. But again, he's left-handed. We know the Padres have struggled miserably this year against left-handed pitching. Tuesday night, really good matchup. Right-hander Michael King, 5-4 and a 3.58, going against veteran right-hander Aaron Nola, 8-3 and a 3.48. Aaron Nola pitching like Aaron Nola pitched a few years ago. He pitched well in the playoffs last year, but the prior during the regular season, he wasn't all that great, wasn't overpowering. He's been incredible this year with that new long-term contract. And then Wednesday, getaway day to get the Padres back to San Diego. I think you got another good pitching matchup. You got right-hander Matt Waldron, who I just talked about, 4-6 and a 3.66, going against the hottest pitcher in baseball right now, left-hander Ranger Suarez, 10-1 and a 1.77 ERA. Wow. So again, the matchup Monday, 3:40, Vasquez against Sanchez, the left-hander for Philly. Tuesday at 3:40, right-hander Michael King going against right-hander Aaron Nola. And getaway day at 10:05 Wednesday morning, Matt Waldron going against left-hander Ranger Suarez. I'm telling you, folks, the Padres can be a playoff team. They can be a playoff team. But right now, they're mediocre. They're mediocre. They got to do better. They got to play harder. They got to play tougher, and they got to be more decisive in what they're trying to do. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what the makeup is of this team. I see a lot of individual at bats. I want to see a little more teamwork out there. I'm not seeing it right now. Jackson Merrill had home runs in each of the first two games, doing a hell of a job. That kid, I don't know where he's going to finish in Rookie of the Year, and I'll talk about this the remainder of the year. And I know when he gets to August and September, things are going to slow down. He's going to be tired. He'd never been at this level, this type of intensity, going against these type of guys day in and day out. Boy, what a breath of fresh air this young kid is. Profar still playing good ball. Fernando went through a little bit of a struggle in the series in New York, but he's been playing well. He's been on a hot streak. Hassan Kim's getting his hits here and there. Arise is still swinging the bat pretty well. I mean, collectively, the guys are doing okay, but as a team, they're not. They got to hit with 2 outs and runners on, man. You got to find a way to get the job done. Very frustrating Padre team to watch. But, I've said that many a year. Very frustrating. But I'm going to tell you this. I'll be very honest. If the Padres don't make the playoffs this year, you're going to have to make some significant changes on the field and off the field, in my opinion. You can't keep going this direction, folks. You just can't keep going this direction. Okay, I want to finish with my Tony Gwynn story. I had a great relationship with Tony Gwynn. And, I think a lot of the media guys did. I'm not going to single myself out. I think Nick Canepa, Tom Krasovic, Bill Center, John Maffey, myself, and, there are others. But guys that went to the ballpark and were there every day, Tony always had a lot of respect for. And, it was like towards the last few years of Tony's career, I'd be down at Qualcomm Stadium and on opening day, and Tony would say to me, "Okay, coach, tell everybody my thoughts on this." That's why we always jokingly talk about the second home game of a season is Tony Gwynn opening day, because Tony always liked the guys and girls that showed up on the non-exciting days, not opening day, not certain days, certain tribute days, big days. He liked guys showing up on Wednesday nights in the middle of July when nothing else was going on, because he wanted to know who the guys that loved the game were. He just didn't want the guys to show up on the special days when, certain guys come into town and there's a lot of media out there. He wanted that grinder type of guy and girl that would show up day in and day out, regardless if the team was going well or bad or what was going on. But I'm going to share one story with you because it'll always touch me. And it also includes Jerry Coleman. And I wrote this down, and I've shared over the years on the air, I've shared many stories about Tony and Jerry. And, one of my things, people ask me all the time, what are some of your fondest memories of being in the broadcasting business and interviewing this guy or that guy? And, I guess I could write a book. A lot of people are always wanting me to write a book about my experiences, on the radio and guys that I've worked with, because I've worked with some of the best in the business. No question about it. I was very fortunate in my radio career to work with a lot of incredible broadcasters. But Jerry Coleman's a guy that I listened to as a kid growing up. Once he came to San Diego, I think Jerry's first year was 1972. And so I was always a big Jerry Coleman fan. I got to call a spring training game with him once upon a time. And then to get to know Tony Gwynn and know him to where, I sat in his cubicle right next to him. If Ricky Henderson wasn't here or Chris Gwynn wasn't here, more times than not, I had a folding chair right there in the cubicle next to Tony Gwynn, sitting there talking ball and talking high school sports with him or whatever, talking about how little Tony Gwynn Jr. was coming up through the ranks and eventually to Poway High School in San Diego State. So I had this incredible relationship with Tony, like a lot of people did. But I know it was special, and there are a lot of other things that I'll share at another time regarding Tony that were special. But I wanted to point this out on Father's Day and on the 10-year anniversary of Tony's passing. I want to go back to Jerry Coleman passed away on a Sunday, and I was the general manager of the Sockers, and I was in Tijuana. We were playing a Tijuana team in our soccer match, and the phone rang. My old buddy Joe Titino called me and said, "Hey, Jerry Coleman passed away." And I go, "Well, I'm about an hour from leaving here. I'll get home." And by the time I got home, I had TV cameras at my house. I had phone calls that I had to return. People wanted to talk to me about the passing of Jerry Coleman. And so it was kind of chaotic. So that was on a Sunday. Well, that Thursday night, like I did, during the basketball season, I was doing a show on the border in Mission Valley, and Steve Fisher's show was from 6 to 7, and then I was on from 7 to 10. And I called Tony, and I called a bunch of guys on Tuesday that I said, "Hey, I'm doing Coach Fisher's show from 6 to 7, and then I want to have a tribute to Jerry Coleman." And that was also going to be. Jerry had passed away a couple of Sundays prior to that. And so the tribute was going to be on the Saturday coming up. And it was the Saturday, January 18th, where it was going to be the celebration of life for Jerry Coleman. So I called people on Tuesday to say, "Hey, could you be on my show Thursday? Because Jerry's celebration of life is going to be on Saturday, and I'm going to be the radio anchor." I radio anchored, and this is one of the things I'm very proud of being a San Diego boy. Was I anchored Junior Seau's celebration of life on radio, Jerry Coleman's, and eventually Tony Gwynn's. I was chosen, and I think I was chosen because I had relationships with all those guys, but I was all San Diego boy, and people knew how much it would mean to me to anchor that coverage. And we did juniors at Qualcomm Stadium, and Jerry and Tony's were at Petco Park. So anyways, I called Tony after I'd called a variety of other guys to be on Thursday night. I called Tony on Tuesday, and we had this long conversation. And he goes, "Coach," he goes, "I'm going to be in Los Angeles. I'm going to be doing a baseball clinic, but I want you to just call my phone and just keep calling my phone and calling my phone." So we call his phone Thursday night. I'm out on the border. My producer's calling his phone, not answering. Well, if he's doing a baseball clinic, if you've ever been around Tony Gwynn for 5 minutes, you know that, if he says he's going to get off the field at 8 o'clock, he's going to get off the field at about 9:30. And so, I mean, there were obviously good intentions, but he never answers. So, we bypassed it. I do the show, and then I did my show the following day. And so I get out to Petco Park bright and early on the day of Jerry's celebration. And, I got there, I think, at 9 o'clock, and I was going on the air at 10 o'clock, and the celebration of life was at 10:30. And just before I go on the air, Tony walks in the booth. He's got a suit jacket on, got a ball cap on, got his sunglasses on. And he goes, "Coach," he goes, "I owe you one. Do you need me today?" And I turned around, I go, "Yeah, T, I need you today." And so he goes, "Okay, as soon as this is over, I'll be back over." And so Tony came in, and I'll tell you more about what I found out later on. So Tony goes in the broadcast booth next to me. So, I throw it down to the coverage, and I believe Ted was doing the coverage, if I'm not mistaken. And then when it was all over, it came back to me. we went, took a commercial break, comes back to me. And so Tony comes over, and we were on from about 12:05 to about 12:35. And to this day, I wish I had the tape of that. I was so, bummed about Jerry, and I was going to see Tony. Little did I know that was going to be the last time I saw Tony. I sent him several messages in the coming months. But anyways, we did a half hour. He was fantastic. Okay. Tony passes away in 2014. I eventually, after the 2015 season, I left radio for a while. And I hooked on. I was still doing my general manager's work with the Sockers. And I eventually took a job with John Boggs, Tony Gwynn's agent, who'd also represented me in a couple of my contract negotiations in radio over the years. And I'll never forget one day, Boggsy and I were sitting in his office talking about Tony like we did just about every day. And he goes, the day that Jerry had his celebration of life, Tony was getting out of the carport. I was walking through, and he goes, all right, T, let's go down to the field. He goes, oh, no, I'm not going down to the field. He goes, I owe Coach. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, I was supposed to be on his show the other night to talk about Jerry, and I let him down. And so Tony told John Boggs, he goes, I got to go see Coach. So Tony came up, and that's when he came in and said, hey, do you need me today? And I go, I certainly do. Now, that's loyalty, folks. You know what? He's Tony Gwynn. He could have gone down there, been with all the muckety mucks, but instead he thought of this guy that yelled and screamed on the radio for many years. That's the kind of respect Tony had, I guess, for me. That's pretty humbling, to be honest with you. I could tell you other Tony Gwynn stories over the years that him and I had together. And maybe on the last day of the season, when we do a podcast, I'll share what it was like spending time with Tony on his final day in the big leagues. That was a special day too. But I've got several special days with Tony Gwynn. But I thought on Father's Day, I would share that with you, how Tony Gwynn was real loyal to yours truly. It was a rough weekend in New York. Padres played some bad baseball. They got some good starting pitcher from Matt Waldron, not so good from Adam Mazur and Dylan Cease. They had a few moments on Sunday offensively, but in the first two games, it scored a couple of runs, and they were both courtesy of Jackson Merrill. Can't expect a 21-year-old kid to carry this ball club offensively. They came back against not a real great bullpen of the New York Mets. They're going to face some real shooters coming up on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And again, we will have our next podcast on Wednesday. It'll be up by dinner time on Wednesday night. But again, I want to wish everyone out there, all you dads out there, a very, very happy Father's Day. And if you're a son, daughter, maybe you haven't sent that certain text message or phone call, let me tell you, it means the world to dads on this day. It really does. I love you all. I thank you all for tuning in. Happy Father's Day. And let's hope the Padres have better fate taking on the red-hot Philadelphia Phillies at Citizens Bank Ballpark. Have a great few days, folks. Talk to you again real soon. Thanks for tuning in. And again, make sure, San Diego Sports Talk, make sure you subscribe. And again, you can follow me on Facebook at John Kentera and on X at Coach Kentera 44. Good day. Be well. Bye-bye.